Welcome back. I'm MTG Joe, and today we're going to be continuing trying to build some block constructed or basically decks for best of one that utilize only cards from the recent two Ravnica sets. So that's Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance. This is more geared towards some of the newer players, most likely on MTG Arena. Just as they're starting to build up their collection, they're likely going to have more of the recent cards than some of the older sets like Ixalan and M19 and Dominaria. So we had another deck like this, same kind of concept. We built around Cavalcade of Calamity, so it was a Boros aggro deck. So this deck here, we're calling it Black White or Orzhov Divine Afterlife. So as the name kind of references, we're playing around the afterlife mechanic. So this one does have a couple more rares. And just to kind of preface, the same as last time, uh, actually forgot that. So the only extra non recent set that we're playing with is like the checklands for so isolated chapel in this case, and the other one we play clifftop retreat. Having an important mana base is something that you should invest your wild cards in. It gives you the most flexibility, especially with our deck. As you can see, it's quite low on 1 and 2 drops. We want to ensure that we always have untapped mana when available. So to run through the deck itself, so we play 4 Hunted Witness. So when it dies, it basically replicates a creature. So this is an ode to the old Aristocrats deck, Doom Traveler, which created a spirit when it died. So we're gaining value basically for having our creatures die. We have Tithe Taker, which is a taxing effect on our opponent. This will help with counter spells, and when it dies, we get a 1/1 spirit. Uh, the Orzhov Enforcer makes is pretty much unblockable unless the opponent wants to trade something with the Death Touch, and then it leaves the body behind. We're playing two Priests of the Forgotten Gods in this build. So Priest allows you to sack two other creatures, which then we, as you can see the theme in our deck, we get creatures back. Opponent will lose some life as well as has to sack a creature, and it gives us mana and draws a card. So it's just a lot of value with this card. You usually see this in like the Mardu Aristocrat builds. We don't have Judith in this deck, so we don't get the residual ping value, but we'll test it out, and this might be something you'd want to consider adding a couple more of. We have Impervious Oligart, which is just a 2/1 vigilance. When it dies, we get another spirit. We have Pitless Pontiff, which allows us to have a sack outlet and an indestructible blocker. We have 3 Midnight Reapers for card draw when creatures die, so just kind of synergizing in that case. Plague Crafter, which can get rid of opponent's creatures or planeswalkers, and we can basically just sack and get a creature back, so we don't really lose anything in that exchange. 4 Mortify, one of my favorite removal spells in the format. There's a lot of good enchantments going around. We're playing 3 Seraphs, good beater on its own end, and when it dies, we have 2 Angels. Then we have Teysa Karlov, who's want to try it out. She is the aristocrat queen in this case. So when a creature dies, it causes a triggered ability. So this is something that happens in respect to an action. Uh, it doubles that trigger. So when we get any of these afterlife spells, we get 2 spirits, or in the case of Seraph, we'd get 4 spirits. And then she gives all our tokens vigilance and lifelink. So with our spirits, we can attack in, pressure, and then still have some stuff back. And then the spice element, the divine part of the name, is divine visitation. So in essence, this is a replacement effect. If we were to get a 1/1 spirit, instead we get a 4/4 angel with flying and vigilance. So it really just upgrades all our creatures in the late game. So we'll take this for a spin. I'm playing best of one in the same case, unranked. Uh, these are somewhat unproven decks right now. So I want to give it an opportunity to test it out first and then make some revisions before we go. Unlike the Boros Cavalcade, I think it's much easier to put a sideboard together for this if you want to take it into best of 3. The Boros deck was a bit more all in, and you can check out in the video play, you can see we either won on turn 4 or 5, or we just ran out of cards or got swept and all our 1/1s got outclassed quickly. So it's a kind of more all-in surprise element, but opponent can easily side into, say, Cry of Carnarium out of the sideboard, and that just ruins our day. We have a lot more resilient threats here. Um, So outside of not being able to play Haunted Witness on 1, I think this is a good hand. We can curve Orzhov Enforcer into Midnight Reaper, or depending on how the opponent plays, go differently. Sorry, my dog just wants to join me in the room to watch us play some videos. So opponent might be on mono blue here, passes the turn. So here, just to be mana efficient, we'll play the Orzhov Enforcer. They opt, so we're still unsure if this is a Drake's deck or mono blue. I think mono blue were actually not that bad just because we could generate a lot of spirits. Okay, so it's a Merfolk deck. Need to be aware of the Merfolk Trickster. So here, I think we just go Midnight Reaper and hold back for now. I'm fine if they want to trade off the Silver Guild. I likely won't. So it's uncertain here if they're a mono blue Merfolk build or they've just not. Okay, it's first time I've seen Silver Guild Adept in these decks. You'd think they didn't play enough spells. So Karlov, Teysa would have been good here. So here I think let's attack in first. They're unlikely to block here, so we get in the point of damage. Now we'll Plague Crafter. We will sack the Orzhov Pontiff. We get a Spirit to block the Djinn, and we draw a removal spell, which is great. So we can get rid of the Djinn. We can also play Seraph of the Scales next turn. So we'll pass the turn back here. So next turn we have some options. If they tap out, then I think we'll look for the Mortify, but even playing the Angel here might not be too bad. It holds them back. This deck kind of incentivizes, especially when you get like a Midnight Reaper down, for them not to attack. So the opponent's holding back here. So here we do have, so they do have a Flash and Threat. Need to decide if we want, I think we still just play out the Seraph this turn. So what we'll do is we'll attack with the Hunted Witness. So we're going to see what our opponent does now if they want to flash in a Trickster. So here we're actually just going to Mortify. So they don't have a Wizard in play, so it turns off Wizard's Retort. If they want to use the Dive Down now, they can. Okay, so they do have the Dive Down. So here, so I won't attack now. If they want to attack, we're fine. This allows our Seraph to be more likely to trade. So what you want to be aware with mono blue, wizards, they play a couple wizards. So if they have the Siren Storm Tamer out or the Merfolk Trickster, they can play Wizard's Retort, which is the basically unconditional counter for 2 mana. So by us trying to do the Mortify in response, okay, so that's another good draw. It gives us some more card draw options. So I think before we play, we'll attack in with the Plague Crafter. They likely take the damage here. Okay, so they're going to offer the trade. That's actually not a bad value for us. Because if we could draw another land, we could play... Okay, so we're just playing mono Seraphs now. Block for days. So we'll see if the opponent has a counter here. Us having... Okay, so there's one Wizard's Retort. So pass turn. Another land here is pretty good, so let's attack in first. So they Merfolk Trickster here. They'll likely block. Okay, so they block the Midnight Reaper. We get another land. So we'll play the Seraph here. See if they have the counter spell. So they have. So we need to dodge one turn here. They will have. Okay, so we are somewhat stuck here as we can't play the Midnight Reapers because of our life total. And Mistcloak Herald pretty much spells game here. So they attack with both. Oh, so they opt not to attack here. So we'll attack for one here. I think we're still dead regardless. They have the 2 flyers. So we'll just concede this one here. It was a close one. Them counter. We had all the the angels, which are really good. They just had the counters. Mono blue is one of the tougher decks. I think what this deck would really benefit from is having something like from the older sets, if you're familiar, Cartel Aristocrat, something that you didn't have to pay mana in to sack your creatures. Okay, so this hand's really good. Haunted Witness into Imperial Oligarch into either removal or Midnight Reaper. What's really nice with Midnight Reaper in this deck is not only do we get creatures from them dying, but so say they board wipe and we have this board, we still get creatures afterwards, plus we draw cards to refill our hand. So it's quite resilient. So Danto Vanguard, that's fine. We can block this for days. So this looks like it's a White Weenies deck. So here we want to attack. We'll play the Oligarch. So they can keep basically paying 4 life to make it indestructible. If this is just straight mono white, it's quite a slow start for them. Usually they'd curve 1 drop into the Vanguard into maybe a History Benalia. So this version's playing Militia Bugler. Healer Hawk, that's fine. So here I'll play out the Midnight Reaper. So that way if they do want to do any sort of attacks, we can block and get some card draw out of it. And then next turn we could play Crafter. The Healer Hawk can fly over us right now, but we have the option to sacrifice the Oligarch if need be to get a blocker to trade with it. So they play the Healer Hawk here. So there is an option for us to mortify the Militia Bugler depending what they play with, so then we can at least attack in with the Oligarch. If it dies, we get a Spirit. Here. just take the 2 here. The reason we want to keep this around is we can block when it becomes the larger power. So here we'll just have this enter untapped. So there's a play for us to blow up History of Benalia, but I think we just get rid of the Bugler so we can attack in. This having Vigilance is good because we can apply some pressure while still holding it back on defense. And then next turn we can play Crafter. Following turn we could Pitless Pontiff and play Crafter. So they take it. They'll gain back a life. So the reason we did that is because the 3 toughness is harder for us to deal with than just being able to punch in some damage. So we'll see what they do attack-wise here. I would imagine it will just be the Healer Hawk. So they Conclave Tribunal. So here I'm going to take the trades. They'll pay for life here, and we will trade. We're still left with 2 creatures after to block next turn, plus it's easier for us to block this turn. So the untapped line there is nice. So we're going to have to sack off the soldier token anyways, so we'll gain 1 life in the process. So here we'll play Crafter. I would imagine one of the Healer Hawks gets sacked here. So another card you could consider if you're willing to go from older sets or if you still have one is Memorial of Folly. It's the land that taps for a swamp, and for 3 mana you could bring a creature back from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so they sacrifice the Healer Hawk there, which is good. And then we'll just bring out the Pitless Pontiff, depending on how they attack here. Leonin War Leader is tough for us. We need to get a removal spell here. I think we just block in like this. If they attack with the War Leader, worst case, we can block, and then sack it off so they don't gain the life. That's another good draw. And we'll pass the turn. Maybe right for us to play some number of Conclave Tribunals. So of note, this becomes indestructible and gains lifelink, so it does hold it back. And then how it works is if we block and we sack before damage gets done, they're unable to gain the life. So opponent's thinking here. Let's see if they'll attack with the war leader. That'd probably be best case. Okay, so they have another conclave tribunal. So can't sacrifice itself. So now we fall a bit behind. So we'll block here. Block here. So they're going to gain the 3 life back. So I think unless we hit like a Mortify next turn or a Seraph of the Scales, we're a little far behind. Doesn't do too much. They just sack a token, get more back. Still at 14, but they're going to be applying a lot more damage. See what they sack. It's likely one of these cats. Yeah, we'll just concede this one. This card is just going to draw too much value for them. So the deck feels a little slow. Thinking getting the value there. We haven't seen Tesa, so it might just be some coincidence. Maybe Conclave Tribunal put in a couple instead of the Plague Crafters. Because this is an ETB, so it doesn't work with Tesa. We're also, oh, so screwed up the lands. That's probably why. So we're playing 28 lands, which is way too much for this deck. So that could be why we weren't seeing some of our cards. The Magic Auto Land Suggester usually takes them out, but it looks like this case they didn't. Let me know what you think of the deck here. If you've had any luck with just straight or like Orzhov. Judith is a very good card in this type of matchup, just being able to ping your opponent and then also just making everything get that much bigger. That's where like the frame of the Aristocrats deck comes in. So this hand's a little bit slower, but if we draw another land, we're quite far ahead. We have a lot of removal into Seraph. This looks like White Weenie again. Some other like useful cards you could consider in this type of archetype where you're just using creatures for like a removal spell like Fungal Infection. So you have Double Strike. So here, just play out the Enforcer. It holds back the Vindicator, unless they have a pump spell. So they have the Lava Coil, which is quite unfortunate because we don't get either half, and they attack in for 3 here. Need a land, which is not the case. So we'll just play out the Pontiff. So we'll just block like this. Stumbling on a land there was tough. Okay, so we hit the land here. We'll just mortify and say go. Just in case they have, so they have another reinforcement. It's 8 damage, kills us. So stumbling on a land hurt there. I think if we would have got the like another creature out, it would have helped. This is why we test it out. So we'll try one more with the deck, and then we'll try out another archetype in the space. I think we might try out either like a Rakdos build or some sort of like blue-white token-esque deck. This hand is slow. Really only hitting the board on 3. I'm gonna mulligan this. This hand's a lot better. So we see both our priests. Mortify on top is also nice. So here, we're just going to discard the second priest. Another hunted witness isn't bad, so we'll just play out the witness. Electrostatic fields. So here we'll just play out the priest and pass the turn. So if we get to next turn, then we're in a pretty good shape. So they have the shock. We needed the priest there. So this looks like some sort of burn deck. So we'll just play our creatures, but it looks like we're a little too slow in this matchup. I haven't seen much Vicious Rumor being played around. You'd think the Spectacle Thoughtseize would be a better card for this deck. So we're at 12. So we'll just play another Orzhov Enforcer. So any sort of lightning strike deals 4 to us, so they only need to hit 3. They skewer, so, and then signals they don't have light up the stage in hand. Oh, Mortify is good here. Just get rid of that. Doing this now just in case they respond to it. So we need something with a bit more power or a way to kill the hunted witness. That basically invalidates one of our attacks. Another land here. We're going to play it out just in case we get Teysa. So return 2 burn spells from dead. Curious as to what this card is in the opponent's hand. Carnage. feel like this deck could probably have a bit more play against something, say like Sultai, just because they don't have trample a lot of their creatures, we can play through them. Okay, so we have Mortify in case they play out a creature. There may be an option as well, depending on how they play it out, to mortify one of our Hunted Witness at end step. This will give us a lifelink soldier, just to give us some life. Does the opponent have it? So we do want to target, even Arena's questioning our decision. We'll see if they have a response. We just really need to try to shy away. Another land doesn't help. Okay, so they have the cast down. Just play the land out. We gotta dodge 2 more draw. So they have Vraska's Contempt. So they get 4 turns effectively, but the Angel's a nice draw. Okay, so they either win or we win, unless they have like another Contempt. Opponent plays a land. They play Bedevil. Jeez, drawing a lot of lands. The only reason I'm playing the lands here is because the daily quest is play 25 lands, just get the coins for a free pack. Does the opponent have it? Nope. So we managed to stave off at 2 life. So you can see some of the synergies with the deck. Probably need to play around with it. Playing in the best of 1 unranked also gets you a variety of decks. So it's something you probably want to play around with a bit more. But let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoy the videos, the best way to support the channel is to hit that subscribe button in the bottom right. It's free for you and goes a long way to helping me put out more content. Thanks for watching and have a great one.